Welcome to Delegation in under 8 minutes. Now, the first thing is to know what delegation is. So if I go to the lorry driver and say, please deliver this to Sheffield, that's not delegating because that's his or her job anyway. Delegating is where you give them part of your job or something that could be either. So if I say, from now on, I want you to plan your own route rather than me doing it, then that's delegating. And the two ingredients of delegating are, first of all, monitoring and then giving support or not. So delegating is where you monitor as they do the task and you give them support if necessary. The only other box on here that's acceptable is empowerment. And this is where you don't monitor, but you are available for support if they need it. Now, abdication, just so we know, is where you don't care. You're not monitoring, you're not available for support. That only leaves one more, which is seagull management, where you monitor, but you don't support. And this is where you come flapping in, making lots of noise, poo all over them, and flap away again. All too common, I'm afraid, monitoring and not support, seagull management. So clearly, seagull is bad, abdicating is bad, but delegating and empowerment are genuine options. Now, I think it goes without saying that delegation is a good idea. Obviously, we save time. We save our time by giving a job to somebody else. And we also save money because they're probably cheaper than we are. So even if they take a bit longer to do it because their hourly rate is less, we save money overall. And of course, sometimes they're cheaper than we are and they do it quicker, which brings me to the fact they might do a better quality job. Because this might be at the bottom of my scale of interestingness, some boring job that I'm not interested in and I don't do very well. It might be at the top of their scale. The next benefit is that they learn from that. So you're improving the skills of your people, and that means that it's motivational for them. So as we pass the lower ones from our column of work across to them, they're moving upwards. Worst case is this will have to go to somebody else, but this is a good trade we've made. So they're motivated as their column of work moves upwards and they learn more interesting work. It also means that we now have two people who can do this job, me and the person I've delegated it to. So we have a backup if anything happens to me, and that means then that I can get promoted if a job comes along. Well, we have all sorts of fears, and I suppose the biggest fear that we have is quality. What if it goes wrong? Or what if it's just worse than if we had done it? Now, I would say if you monitor, which I'm going to come to, if you monitor the job, then the quality can't go wrong. Obviously, if you're not monitoring, if you're just abdicating, it might go wrong, but that would be your fault. So that shouldn't be a problem. Now, if they do it worse than you, now this could be an issue. There's a rule I really like, which is if they can do it 80% as well as you, give it to them. Maybe it won't be done quite as well as you would do it, but we're saving time and money. And of course, this last 20% is probably in your mind anyway. It's probably fine. You just think it's not as good as how you would have done it. Now, I think some people have a fear that the quality will be great if they delegate it. It'll be better than the boss, and the boss will be shown up in some way. Well, that's ridiculous. Of course, you want a team who are doing the job better than you would, because you in the end get the credit for the work of your whole team. Now, what if they are too busy? They're already stacked with work and you're delegating more to them. Now, the only thing I would say is, how do you know? Because quite often people appear busy when you're around because you're the boss, or even the work expands to fill the time. And if you give them one more thing, they can fit it in, but you won't know until you ask. So it's really important when you monitor to judge, have I overloaded my team or not? I think the only other objection to delegating is that does it look lazy if we're just giving out all the horrible jobs to the people who work for us? And my answer to that is we shouldn't be just giving out the horrible jobs. We should give out all of the jobs, including some good ones. So remember that your idea of a horrible job to them might be really interesting and challenging. If you've got somebody who's got a skill level of, let's say, 5 out of 10 in a particular area, you want to be giving them work that's 5 and sometimes giving them work that's 6 to stretch them. Don't give them a 9 because they will do a bad job, they'll fail, they'll get demoralised, and the customer will be unhappy as well. So you want to give them 5s and 6s. And so you just want to keep people moving up, and you want to judge where they're at and give them work that will stretch them and challenge them and give them a feeling of achievement. And you might have to help them a little bit of support, bit of coaching to get them up from 5 to 6 or from 8 to 9. Now, next I want to say something about the exact words to use when you delegate something. And the first thing is to say what you want, not how to do it. Let them do it their own way. Even if you know how to do it, don't tell them how you want it done. But don't give them all the details of how to do it, because then you're implying that they're not competent. And then the next thing is to say why that's an important task and why them. So explain why the task matters and explain why they're a good choice. And it could be that you want them to learn. It's the first time they've done a 6 or a 9. So you could say, I've chosen you because I want you to learn about this because I think you're going to be really good at it. But it could be that you're choosing them because they're already good at it, and that's fine too. The next thing obviously you're going to say is when you need it by, and any limits to, for example, money or decision making generally, what's their level of authority, and then you need to say what sort of reporting you want to have. So I want you to tell me every day how it's getting on, because it's such an urgent, important job. Or I want you to give me a summary once a week of where you're at. Or I want you just to email me once a month with the total of how much money you've spent. So how often and what type of reporting you want. And then you need to check that they're okay. Does that make sense? Are you happy with that? Because sometimes to us it seems like an obvious job, but they're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And they're too frightened to say they don't know. So they just say, oh, yes, boss. But actually they don't know how. So check that they're okay. And finally, say to them, you can do it. Finish really positively. It's going to be great. You're going to enjoy it. I know it's going to be good. Any problems, come to me. I am always available for support. So that's kind of the textbook way you would delegate something. And by the way, you've got to mean that. So when they do come to you asking for support, saying they've had a problem, you mustn't go, oh, what? I knew I should never have given you this job. You know, even if they get you at a bad moment, you must always be supportive. Final thought about this is make sure that you keep a grip of tasks that you've delegated. We talked about monitoring earlier on. So how do you do that? Well, you can say, check with me before you do the next part. You can say to them, report after. So you could say, after you've done the next bit, tell me. And you can either do it after they've done the next step, or you can say at the end of each week, give me a summary of where you're at. Could be monthly. It can also just be by exception. So you can say, just go for it. But if you have any problems, come to me. Two other ways. You can make it visual. So you can say, I want you to keep some sort of graph or diagram. Might be on the wall, might be on some shared document that you can look at whenever you need to. So you could make it visual. And then finally, you could check at the team meeting how things are getting on. So perhaps every Monday when you have your team meeting, you could just say, and Dave, how are you getting on with that project? And Sally, what's happening with that? And you could just keep a little eye on the things that you've delegated to make sure they're okay. So that's how you monitor. Right, so there we are. That's delegation in under 8 minutes. I hope you found it useful.